In this course, I'm going to take you from a complete beginner to building powerful no-code AI agents. I don't have any coding experience, and you don't need any either. In the past 8 months, I've made over $500,000 in revenue by building and teaching people how to build AI agents. In this video together, we're going to set up your 2-week free n8n trial. We're going to set up credentials together and walk through step-by-step builds. And by the end, you'll have over 15 AI automations ready to take advantage of this opportunity. All right, so here's a quick look at the high-level course agenda. Keep in mind, everything will be time-stamped below, so you can jump around to where you need, but I definitely recommend saving this for later. As you can see, this is extremely comprehensive, packed with a ton of value, so you can come back to this later when you want to explore different chapters. But what we're going to do is start off with talking about AI agents and the opportunity that we are all living in right now. Then we'll move into n8n foundations. I'll set up a free 2-week trial with you guys. I will talk about the UI, we'll get familiar with it, and go over some foundational knowledge you'll need. From there, we'll move into step-by-step workflows where we're actually using that knowledge and connecting to different integrations and setting up some pretty cool automations right away. Then we'll talk about APIs and HTTP requests. We'll set up a few common examples together, and you'll see it's not that difficult. Then moving into the back half of the course, we'll talk about AI agent tools and memory. We will discuss multi-agent architectures. I'll talk about prompting, do a live example, and some other cool tips that I want to share with you guys that could be helpful. We will look at webhooks, what those really mean, and then we'll look at a few example workflows where we've triggered them with webhooks. I'll talk about MCP servers, what that really is, and we'll do a step-by-step self-hosted setup of n8n and connect to some MCP servers. And finally, we'll close off with lessons from my first 6 months of building AI agents. So if that all sounds good to you guys, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so AI agents, artificial intelligence, whatever it is, there is definitely a lot of hype. There's no denying that. And so the purpose of this section is just to make sure we can cut through all of that and actually understand what is an AI agent at its core, what can they do, and why do we need them. You probably heard, digital employee or virtual assistant, all this kind of stuff, but we need to understand what that actually means and what powers them. So at this point, I'm sure we are all familiar with something like ChatGPT, which is a large language model at its core. And so what we're looking at right here is a very simple visualization of how a large language model works, meaning right here in green, we have a large language model, let's say it's ChatGPT, and we, the user, give it some sort of input. So maybe that's like, hey, help me write an email to John. The LLM would then take our input, process this, it would basically just create an email for us, and then it would spit that out as an output, and that's it. This LLM at its core cannot take any action. It's really not that practical. It just kind of helps you be more productive. Because at the end of the process, we'd have to take this output and copy and paste it into something that actually can take action, like Gmail. And so the power of these large language models really comes into play when we start to expose them to different tools. And tools just means any of these integrations that we use every single day within our work that let us actually do something. So whether that's send an email or update a row in our CRM or look at a database, or Airtable, whatever it is, even Outlook, that's a tool. It just means connecting to an actual platform that we use to do something. So now instead of having the LLM help us write an email that we would copy and paste, or us exporting a Google Sheet and giving it to an LLM to analyze, it can basically just interact with any of its tools that we give it access to. So when we add an LLM to tools, we basically can get 2 different things, and that is either an AI workflow or an AI agent. So right away, you can already tell what the difference is, but you can also see some similarities. So let's break it down. Starting with an AI workflow, we can see that we have an input, similar to like we did up top with our LLM. But now instead of just going input, LLM, output, we can work in those tools right into the actual AI workflow itself. So here is an example of what an AI workflow could practically look like. First of all, we have a tool, which is HubSpot, and that's going to be the input for this workflow. This will basically pass over a new lead that has been inserted into our CRM. Then we're hitting another tool, which is Perplexity, which helps us do research. So we're going to do research on that lead. From there, after we get that research, we're going to hit an LLM, which is where this whole AI-powered workflow terminology comes in, because we're using that LLM to then take the research, draft a personalized email, and then it can use another tool to actually send that email. And the reason that we do this as a workflow is because this is going to happen in the same 4 steps in that order every time. New lead comes in, research, write the personalized email, send the email. And so whenever we know a process is linear or sequential or it's going to follow that order every time, it's much, much better to do an actual workflow rather than send that off to an AI agent, where we have an input, we have the LLM, which is the AI agent, this is the brain of the whole operation, and it has access to all of the different tools it can use, and then it has an output. So yes, it is true that this AI agent down here could do the exact same job as this AI workflow. We could also over here with an AI agent get a new form and have a new row in our CRM. The agent could then think about it and decide, okay, I'm going to use Perplexity to do research, and then after that, I'm going to send an email with my email tool. But it's not the most effective way to do it because it's going to be more expensive, it's going to be slower, and it's going to be more error prone. So basically the whole idea is AI agents can make decisions and act autonomously based on different inputs. AI workflows follow the guardrails that we put in place. There's no way they can deviate off the path that we chose for them. So a big part of building effective systems is understanding, okay, do I need to build an AI workflow or am I going to build an AI agent? Is this process deterministic or non-deterministic? Or in other words, is it predictable or is it unpredictable? If something's unpredictable, that's when we're going to use an AI agent with a brain and with different tools to actually do the job, and that's where the whole autonomy comes into play. And I don't want to dive too deep into the weeds of this right now. We'll cover this later in a different section. But real quick, 4 main pros of AI workflows over AI agents: reliability and consistency, cost efficiency, easier debugging and maintenance, and scalability. Once again, we have a whole section dedicated to this idea, and we're going to dive into it after we've built out a few AI workflows. But I wanted you guys to understand this because obviously the whole purpose you probably came here was to learn how to build AI agents. But before we build AI agents, we're going to learn how to build AI workflows. It's the whole concept of crawl, walk, run. You wouldn't just start running right away. And trust me, after you've built out a few AI workflows, it's going to make a lot more sense when you hop into building some more complex agentic systems. But just to give you that quick fix of AI agent knowledge, and we'll revisit this later when we actually build our first agent together, what is the anatomy of an AI agent? What are the different parts that make one up? So here's a simple diagram that I think illustrates AI agents as simple as possible. We have an input, we have our LLM, and we have our output, like we talked about earlier. But then inside the AI agent, you can see 2 main things. We have a brain and we have instructions. So the first thing is a brain. This comes in the form of a large language model and also memory. So first off, the large language model, this is an AI chat model that we'll choose. Whether that's an OpenAI model or an Anthropic model or a Google model, this is going to be what powers the AI agent to make decisions, to reason, to generate outputs, that sort of stuff. And then we also have the memory. So this can come in the form of long-term memory as well as short-term memory, but basically we want to make sure that if we're conversating with our agent, it's not going to forget what we're talking about after every single sentence. It's going to retain that context window, and it can also remember things that we talked about a while back. And then the other piece is the instructions for the AI agent, which is also kind of referred to as a system prompt. And this is really important because this is telling this AI agent, here's your role, here's what you do, here are the tools you have. This is basically like your job description. So the same way you wouldn't expect a new hire to hop into the company and just start using its different tools and knowing what to do, you would have to give it basically some pretty specific training on this is basically your end goal, here are the tools you have, and here's when you use each one to get the job done. And the system prompt is different than the input, which is kind of referred to as a user prompt. And think of it like this. When you're talking to ChatGPT in your browser and every single message that you're typing and sending off to it is a user message because that input changes every time. It's dynamic. But the system prompt is typically going to stay the same over the course of this agent's life unless its role or actual instructions are going to change. But anyways, let's say the input is, hey, can you help me send an email to John? What's going to happen is the agent's going to use its brain to understand the input. It's going to check its memory to see if there's any other interactions that would help with this current input. Then it will look at its instructions and see, okay, how do I actually send an email to John? And then it will call on its tool to actually send an email. So at a high level, that is the anatomy of an AI agent, and I hope that helps paint a clear picture in your mind. Cool. So now that we've talked about what an AI agent is and what a workflow is and why we want to walk before we run, let's actually get into n8n and start building some stuff. All right, so before we dive into actually building AI agents, I want to share some eye-opening research that underscores exactly why you're making such a valuable investment in yourself today. This research report that I'm going to be walking through real quick will be available for free in my school community if you want to go ahead and take a look at it. It's got a total of 48 sources that are all from within the past year, so you know it's real, you know it's relevant, and it was completely generated for me using Perplexity, which is an awesome AI tool. So, just a year ago, AI was still considered experimental technology for most businesses. Now, it's become the core driver of competitive advantage across every industry and business size. What we're witnessing isn't just another tech trend, it's a fundamental business transformation. Let me start with something that might surprise you. 75% of small businesses now use AI tools. That's right, this isn't just enterprise technology anymore. In fact, the adoption rates are climbing fastest among companies generating just over $1 million in revenue at 86%. What's truly remarkable is the investment threshold. The median annual AI investment for small businesses is just $1,800. That's less than $150 per month to access technology that was science fiction just a few years ago. Now, I know some of you might be skeptical about AI's practical value. Let's look at concrete outcomes businesses are achieving. Marketing teams are seeing a 22% increase in ROI for AI-driven campaigns. Customer service AI agents have reduced response time by 60% while resolving 80% of inquiries without human intervention. Supply chains optimized with AI have cut transportation costs by 5 to 10% through better routing and demand forecasting. These are actual measured results from implementations over the past year. Now, for those of you from smaller organizations, consider these examples. Henry's House of Coffee used AI-driven SEO tools to improve their product descriptions, resulting in a 200% improvement in search rankings and a 25% revenue increase. Vanisec Insurance implemented custom chatbots that cut client query resolution time from 48 hours to just 15 minutes. Small businesses using Zapier automations saved 10 to 15 hours weekly on routine data entry and CRM updates. What's revolutionary here is that none of these companies needed to hire AI specialists or data scientists to achieve these results. The economic case for AI skills is compelling. 54% of small and medium businesses plan to increase AI spending this year. 83% of enterprises now prioritize AI literacy in their hiring decisions. Organizations with AI-trained teams are seeing 5 to 8% higher profitability than their peers. But perhaps most telling is this: small businesses using AI report 91% higher revenue growth than non-AI adopters. That gap is only widening. So the opportunity ahead. The truth is, mastering AI is no longer optional. It's becoming the price of entry for modern business competitiveness. Those who delay risk irrelevance, while early adopters are already reaping the benefits of efficiency, innovation, and market share gains. Now, the good news is that we're still in the early stages. By developing these skills now, you're positioning yourself at the forefront of this transformation and going to be in extremely high demand over the next decade. So let's get started building your first AI agent. All right, so here we are on n8n's website. You can get here using the link in the description. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and sign up for a free trial with you guys. And this is exactly the process you're going to take. And you're going to get 2 weeks of free playing around. And like I said, by the end of those 2 weeks, you're already going to have automations up and running and tons of templates imported into your workflows. And I'm not going to spend too much time here, but basically n8n just lets you automate anything. Any business process that you have, you can automate it visually with no code, which is why I love it. So here you can see n8n lets you automate business processes without limits on your logic. It's a very visual builder. We have a ton of different integrations. We have the ability to use code if you want to. Lots of native nodes to do data transformation, and we have tons of different triggers, tons of different AI nodes, and we're going to dive into this so you can understand what's all going on. But there's also hundreds of templates to get you started, not only on the n8n website itself, but also in my free school community. I have almost 100 templates in there that you can plug in right away. Anyways, let's scroll back up to the top and let's get started here with a new account. All right, so I put in my name, my email, password, and I give my account a name, which will basically be up in the top search bar. It'll be like nateherkdemo.app.n8n.cloud. So that's what your account name means. And you can see I'm going to go ahead and start our 14-day free trial. Just have to do some quick little onboarding. So it asks us what type of team are we on. I'm just going to put product and design. It asks us the size of our company. It's going to ask us which of these things do we feel most comfortable doing. These are all pretty technical. I just want to put none of them, and that's fine. And how did you hear about n8n? Let's go ahead with YouTube and submit that off. And now you have the option to invite other members to your workspace if you want to collaborate and share some credentials. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and skip that option. So from here, our workspace is already ready. There's a little quick start guide you could watch from n8n's YouTube channel, but I'm just going to go ahead and click on Start Automating. All right, so here we are. This is what n8n looks like, and let's just familiarize with this dashboard a little bit real quick. So up in the top left, we can see we have 14 days left in our free trial, and we've used 0 out of 1,000 executions. An execution just basically means when you run a workflow from end to end, that's going to be an execution. So we can see on the left-hand side, we have overview. We have like a personal set of projects. We have things that have been shared with us. We have the ability to add a project. We have the ability to go to our admin panel where we can upgrade our instance of n8n. We can turn it off, that sort of stuff. So here's my admin panel. You can see how many executions I have, how many active workflows I have, which I'll explain what that means later. We have the ability to go ahead and manage our n8n versions, and this is where you could kind of upgrade your plan and change your billing information, stuff like that. But you'll notice that I didn't even have to put any billing details to get started with my 2-week free trial. But then if I want to get back in my workspace, I'm just going to click on open right here, and that will send us right back into this dashboard that we were just on. Cool. So right here we can see we can either start from scratch, a new workflow, or we can test a simple AI agent example. So let's just click into here real quick and break down what is actually going on here. So in order for us to actually access this demo where we're going to just talk to this AI agent, it says that we have to start by saying hi. So there's an open chat button down here. I'm going to click on open chat and I'm just going to type in here, hi. And what happens is our AI agent fails because this is basically the brain that it needs to use in order to think about our message and respond to us. And what happens is we can see there's an error message. So because these things are red, I can click into it and I can see what is the error. It says error in subnode OpenAI model. So that would be this node down here, which is called OpenAI model. I would click into this node and we can basically see that the error is there is no credentials. So when you're in n8n, what happens is in order to access any sort of API, which we'll talk about later, but in order to access something like your Gmail or OpenAI or your CRM, you always need to import some sort of credential, which is just a fancy word for a password, in order to actually get into that information. So right here we can see there's 100 free credits from OpenAI. I'm going to click on claim credits, and now we just are using our n8n free OpenAI API credits, and we're fine on this front. But don't worry, later in this video I'm going to cover how we can actually go to OpenAI and get an API key and create our own password in here. But for now we've claimed 100 free credits, which is great. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and resend this message that says hi. So I can actually go to this hi text and I can just click on this button which says repost message, and that's just going to send it off again. And now our agent's going to actually be able to use its brain and respond to us. So what it says here is, welcome to n8n. Let's start with the first step to give me memory. Click the plus button on the AI agent that says memory and choose simple memory. Just tell me once you've done that. So sure, why not? Let's click on the plus button under memory and we'll click on simple memory real quick. And we're already set up, good to go. So now I'm just going to come down here and say done. Now we can see that our agent was able to use its memory and its brain in order to respond to us. So now it can prompt us to add tools, it can do this other stuff, but we're going to break that down later in this video. Just wanted to show you a real quick demo of how this works. So what I would do is up in the top right, I can click on save just to make sure that what we've done is actually going to be saved. And then to get back out to the main screen, I'm going to click on either overview or personal. But if I click on overview, that just takes us back to that home screen. But now let's talk about some other stuff that happens in a workflow. So up in the top right, I'm going to click on create workflow. You can see now this opens up a new blank page, and then you have the option up here in the top left to name it. So I'm just going to call this one demo. Now we have this new workflow that's saved in our n8n environment called demo. So a couple things before we actually drag in any nodes is up here you can see where is this saved. If you have different projects, you can save workflows in those projects. If you want to tag them, you can tag different things, like if you have one for customer support or you have stuff for marketing, you can give your workflows different tags just to keep everything organized. But anyways, every single workflow has to start off with some sort of trigger. So when I click on add first step, it opens up this panel on the right that says what triggers this workflow. So we can have a manual trigger, we can have a certain event like a new message in Telegram or a new row in our CRM. We can have a schedule, meaning we can set this to run at 6 a.m. every single day. We can have a webhook call, form submission, chat message like we saw earlier. There's tons of ways to actually trigger a workflow. So for this example, let's just say I'm going to click on trigger manually, which literally just gives us this button where if we click test workflow, it goes ahead and executes. Cool, so this is a workflow and this is a node, but this is a trigger node. What happens after a trigger node is different types of nodes, whether that's like an action node or a data transformation node or an AI node, some sort of node. So what I would do is if I want to link up a node to this trigger, I would click on the plus button right here, and this pulls up a little panel on the right that says what happens next. Do you want to take action with AI? Do you want to take action within a certain app? Do you want to do data transformation? There's all these other different types of nodes. And what's cool is, let's say we wanted to take action within an app. If I clicked on this, we can see all of the different native integrations that n8n has. And once again, in order to connect to any of these tons of different tools that we have here, you always need to get some sort of password. So let's say Google Drive. Now that I've clicked into Google Drive, there's tons of different actions that we can take, and they're all very intuitive. You know, would you want to copy a file? Would you want to share a file? Do you want to create a shared drive? It's all very natural language. And let's say, for example, I want to copy a file. In order for n8n to tell Google Drive which file do we want to copy, we first of all have to provide a credential. So every app, you'll have to provide some sort of credential. And then you have basically like a configuration panel right here in the middle, which would be saying, what is the resource you want? What do you want to do? What is the file? All this kind of stuff. So whenever you're in a node in n8n, what you're going to have is on the left, you have an input panel, which is basically any data that's going to be feeding into this current node. In the middle, you'll have your configuration, which is like the different settings and the different little levers you can tweak in order to do different things. And then on the right is going to be the output panel of what actually comes out of this node based on the way that you configured it. So every time you're looking